You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the August 18th meeting for the LaPorte County Board of Zoning Appeals. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the August 18th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Oss, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get started with our agenda, I do want to remind everybody to silence your cell phones, and that public comment for the Board of Zoning Appeals is under remonstrance. If you have something to say about a specific petition, either for or against, you will have 3 minutes to do so at the end of that petition, and that is the only time. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes from July 21st.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay. So with that, we're going to start with our petitions for this evening. Mr. Novak, are you ready?
Ready.
You're done
Ready to go. I got
getting
my
everything all
adrenaline going.
squared away. So we've
do it.
had some technical issues tonight, so I think that's value-added service.
Yeah, that's
under
right.
contract, so.
There you go.
So with that, let's hear petition number 1, which is a petition for special exceptions for Blue Stem Solar Farm LLC for approval of a battery and storage facility on the south side of East Shoal Road and north of East 50 North, Rolling Prairie, being located on a portion of parcel ID, with the ID number located on Kankakee Township on Zoned Ag.
Madam President, notice is adequate, and for the record, LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance Article 2810B requires notice to owners of abutting property and adjacent properties. Those terms are defined in Article 31, and the relevant definitions focus on the relationship of the parcel to, and I'm going to quote here, the tract of real estate that is subject to the application, not on the common ownership of the adjacent parcels. So Section 3102 defines abutting as having a common property line or distinct line. Adjacent property owners are owners of parcels abutting or adjacent to the tract of real estate that is the subject of the application, and adjacent as property lying near the subject property, including across a right-of-way, stream, river, or railroad, and for notice purposes, including parcels that would otherwise adjoin the subject property but for such an intervening feature. So with those specific definitions, there was some communication with the building commissioner's office that notice was not adequate. Notice is adequate as per the requirements of the LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Volz.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Poland. Madam President, members of the BZA, my name is Anthony Novak. I'm an attorney at Newby, Lewis, Kaminsky, and Jones, attorney for the applicant, specifically here, Blue Stem Solar Farm, LLC. Tonight, the applicant's project lead, Kaylee Sampson, will be doing the bulk of the presentation. However, before turning it over to her, I just wanted to set things up. So tonight, the applicant is Blue Stem Solar LLC. That's a wholly owned subsidiary of RWE Solar Development LLC. We filed an application for special exception on July 31st of 2026, seeking approval to construct and operate a battery energy storage system, which sometimes you'll hear tonight as BESS, on property located in Kankakee Township, and as Madam President said, it's on a portion of the parcel ID that's subject to the petition. In support of the application, we submitted substantial supporting evidence, including a property owner's consent, since we are not the current owner of the property, a project narrative, a preliminary site plan, emergency management plan, proposed conditions that the applicant is voluntarily imposing on itself, a vegetative management plan, and an economic impact report. And then just tonight, I handed you all the presentation that we have. and that I broke a sweat for, and as well as a noise study that we had performed. Through the application and the supporting materials, we believe we've met all of the elements for a special exception. As you know, there are approximately 7 and sometimes 8 elements that apply. In the interest of time tonight, we are not going to walk through each and every one, although it is our burden to prove each and every one. We believe that we have done that through the materials and the application. However, we understand that applications such as these, some of the primary concerns, really the most primary concerns, end up being health and safety, and those are the elements that we will touch on the most. And then before turning the presentation over to Kaylee, I do want to address one preliminary procedural matter. BESS is a newer technology to the county. As you can imagine, it wasn't contemplated in 2016 when the joint zoning ordinance was adopted. So there is a mechanism under Article 2, specifically Section 206, where Mike Poland, in his capacity as the enforcement official, can essentially look at a use that's unlisted, figure out what it's most similarly situated to, and then declare that it is that specific type of use, and then it proceeds under the zoning code accordingly. 4 years ago, it was determined that it would be consistent with the utility substation. There was a project that was just announced to you guys, I believe, last month in KIP, where it was designated as a utility substation, and that is how we are proceeding tonight. When something is then classified as a utility substation, you look at the underlying zoning code, ag here. Ag requires special exceptions for utility substations. That's why we are here. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to the project lead, Kaylee Sampson, and then we have a team of people here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
And I do want to thank you for providing the bulk of this information to us prior to the meeting.
Absolutely.
So that we weren't trying to absorb all of it and then make a decision.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Would you guys like me?
I need you to state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kaylee Sampson. My address is 353 North Clark, Chicago, Illinois, 60654. Good evening. Thank you for hearing our petition tonight. The project that we are talking about tonight is Bluestem BESS. It is a subsidiary of Bluestem Solar, but they are not the same project. These projects will be able to operate independently. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before we get started. But Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, the first slide. I want to give a brief intro to our team tonight. My name is Kaylee Sampson. I'm the development lead for Bluestem Solar and Bluestem BESS. I have about 5 years of experience in the energy industry, and I've been working on this project for about 2.5 years. I also have with me tonight Pedro Duarte. He has been with our organization for 15 years. He has worked as a project manager and a manager of construction for residential solar and batteries, and he has been with the BESS engineering fire safety team for about 8 years now, and he is our fire safety expert. He also served in the U.S. Navy for a number of years and worked as a volunteer firefighter. We also have with us Bob Buskirk, our project execution lead. He is an experienced construction project manager and has brought over 300 megawatts of standalone BESS to operations. We also have Anthony Novak, who you guys know, and Rachel Connor, who is our, right here, our project development counsel from the Denton's law firm, and she has over a decade of experience in zoning, construction law, land use policy, and utility scale energy siting in Indiana. Next slide. Obviously, I think this board is familiar with RWE. We are one of the largest developers in the United States, and we are the 3rd largest BESS developer. We have over 1.1 gigawatts of BESS on the grid currently in operations, and we have 13 gigawatts of all technologies under operations, which is enough to power over 10 million homes. Next slide. Before we get started into the project specifics here tonight, I just want to do a brief overview of BESS because I know the previous BESS projects that were approved by this board were approved a number of years ago, and not everyone is super familiar with the technology. A utility scale battery is similar to kind of a battery in your phone. It is just obviously much larger. The batteries in this case will be grid connected batteries, so they will be capable of charging from whatever energy is available on the grid at the time. They can charge from coal, gas, solar, wind, etc., and then discharge when energy demand is high. So that is kind of the purpose of the battery. It has no affiliation with data centers. It is not a data center. I just wanted to make that clear because they tend to be conflated sometimes, so just wanted to make that very clear. And just to break it down, some of the terms you're going to hear tonight. So the smallest component of a battery energy storage system, or BESS, is a cell. That is the individual kind of battery. Those will be kind of grouped into modules, which are then further grouped into racks, which then make up the entire energy storage system or energy storage container. So yeah, they basically, an energy storage container contains multiple racks and multiple modules. Indiana batteries or battery storage can solve a lot of issues on the grid. It helps optimize existing generation by charging with whatever generation is online. It can also, help support load growth in the state, and it increases grid reliability. Obviously, with issues like I know LaPorte saw last week, this would not be the solution to that. But the positive is that it could help during periods of brownouts or blackouts, and it could help we call it peak shaving, which is bring power costs down somewhat, during peak demand hours. It can also be helpful in deferring costly grid upgrades. Next slide. And then I want to give a brief overview of the project. So Bluestem BESS is sited within the footprint of the existing solar project, so we are not asking to take any additional farmland out of production. The footprint of this project is about 10 acres. It is a 55 megawatt project, and it is a 4-hour duration battery, which means it's capable of discharging for 4 continuous hours. The design life for a battery is about 20 years, typically. That is not to say that it will cease operating at the end of 20 years, but the batteries will start to perform somewhat suboptimally. Not in a dangerous way, just in like the way that your phone battery degrades after a period of time. These would be somewhat similar. It's located on an agriculturally zoned parcel on Shoal Road, near the intersection of Pumping Station Road and North 500 East. It is already largely screened from most sides. And like I said, we're not asking for any additional farmland to be taken out of production. This would just involve kind of shifting around some panels within our layout that is already approved. And this project would also share the high voltage transmission infrastructure, being the utility switchyard and the project substation that would be built for Bluestem Solar. Then I just want to briefly go over some project characteristics. So as you can see in the noise study that we provided, the project will be designed to not exceed the county requirement of 50 decibels at the outermost wall of any dwelling. We are actually set back almost 500 feet from the nearest home, and we are going to work to continue to optimize our project layout. Next slide. In terms of project schedule, we expect the permitting period for this project to take 6 to 12 months. We do think there are opportunities to accelerate there. The construction period, this project would likely be able to be constructed at the same time as Bluestem Solar, so it would be a single mobilization, which would sort of minimize like additional mobilizations and a really extended construction period. The project will be operational for 20 years. During that 20-year lifetime, there will be staff on site, and the project will be remotely monitored 24/7. And then we will also, as stated in our list of proposed conditions, we will also sign a decommissioning agreement plan with the county, and we will decommission the project at the end of its lifetime. The project does have a number of economic benefits for LaPorte County. It'll produce some additional new tax revenue. It will create some jobs incremental to those created by the solar project, including several new full-time operations jobs. The solar project itself will be putting a new capital investment of almost $500 million in the county, and so this would just be incremental to that. Next slide. So as Anthony said tonight, we do believe that we have sufficiently shown that we are meeting these special exception decision criteria, but the items that we would specifically like to focus on tonight are the general welfare and no hazard criteria, because we know that a lot of the information that comes up around BESS is concerns about BESS safety. So those are the main things we want to focus on tonight. So this is kind of a dense slide. I fully acknowledge that. So I'll try and give a quick overview of it. All of the projects that RWE designs are compliant with all Indiana state codes, as well as NFPA 72 and NFPA 855. So all national fire code standards we are complying with. We are using the latest in battery technology. A lot of these fires that you've seen in the past are with NMC batteries, which are no longer as common. We're using LFP, which is a much more stable chemistry. We also have a number of systems in place that will protect the battery against any potential thermal runaway or issue like that. Within the battery module itself, there is a BMS system which will manage the battery's operations, and it will automatically shut the battery down if abnormal operations are detected. So it lowers any chance of thermal runaway, which is what happens when essentially a battery fire starts. We also have 24/7 monitoring. We have a remote operations center, which is typically staffed by at least 4 people, which has constant view on the status of the battery and the operating status. And it also has remote shutdown capabilities. And then we also have an NFPA-compliant local fire alarm control panel. This is like a burglar alarm in your house. It'll automatically go off and contact the fire department. And usually this can get the fire department dispatched within about a minute of verifying an alarm. And after that, I will note that no BESS project in RWE's fleet has ever experienced a catastrophic failure. Our safety systems have been tested, but we design these projects and engineer these projects to minimize the opportunities for any major issues. So we have never experienced a catastrophic failure. Next slide. And then I just want to go through a typical emergency response sequence if there were a case where a battery were operating abnormally. So in typical operations, and all this time our remote operations center will be monitoring the status of the battery. So in a typical situation, when the supply is high and the demand is low, the battery will charge. And then when the supply is low and the demand is high, the battery will discharge. And then low-cost energy will be sent to where it's needed. If abnormal operations are detected, it will be flagged by our remote operations center, but at the same time, the battery management system will shut down the affected module, and the fire alarm will be activated, and the fire department will be notified. Following that, emergency response can begin immediately. We do not need RWE personnel on site to begin the fire response. RWE responders will be on site within hopefully an hour or so. We typically employ people in the community, but if people are not on site because it's a weekend or it's a nighttime event or something like that, people will get there as soon as they can. But the site manager will be in charge of sort of directing fire response, but fire response will be performed based on training that we are already conducting with the local fire departments. So far, we have spoken to the Pleasant Township Volunteer Fire Department, the Kankakee Township Volunteer Fire Department, and we are scheduling, we have scheduled a training with the LaPorte City Fire Department, and those are all mutual aid to Kankakee County, where the actual battery project is located. I have mapped out right here where those fire departments are in terms of distance to the battery. Granted, these times for response are based off of just a car on Google Maps, so we think the response times would likely be a lot faster than this. When I've spoken to the Pleasant and Kankakee Township Fire Departments, they've indicated that, it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes their response time to site, but notification would obviously come sooner than that. We did provide an emergency response plan with our application, which you have in front of you, and so that emergency response plan will be finalized and provided to EMS before the project starts construction. And we also did have, LaPorte County Hazmat also attended the Kankakee Township Fire Department training. Next slide. And then this slide just covers is a non-exhaustive list of all of the NFPA fire standards, fire safety state regulation standards that our batteries are designed to meet. A lot of these standards are, related to how the batteries are tested and how they respond in those tests. So just suffice to say that we take these very seriously. Batteries are very highly regulated technology, and we take the utmost care and focus on creating safe projects. And that concludes the main body of my presentation. So if the board has any questions, or I don't know if public remonstrance starts right now.
So do we have remonstrators tonight that would like to please come forward? So one at a time, if you guys want to kind of get in line.
No problem. No problem.
And you will be asked to state your name and address for the record. And again, 3 minutes.
Yep. Steve Hollifield, 6782 East Hunter South, Mill Creek. I spoke today with some people, concerned citizens. Board of Animal Health was not contacted about this, and this does affect livestock within the area, according to them. This is not on the original application as far as I can find. I spoke with Janet and Mike today. We don't think it's on the original application. All of a sudden, magically, it appears. I find that odd. Department of Homeland Security, have they been notified yet? Because they're the ones that are in charge of these batteries, and that goes back to the one that was cited on 104 down there south of Stillwell. Representative Pressel is the one that sponsored that law downstate. He said he spoke with the fire departments and that. 911, have they been contacted? Because they will also need to be notified what they also need to be dispatching also. And 3 things that have not done yet, according to RWE, talking to our highway director today. And 2 of these are financial burdens that scares the hell out of me if they even have any money to do this project. They have not done the pre-constructive video narrative on the roads. They have not provided a required letter of credit security. And they have not given an advance payment for the inspector hours. So like I said, I think these things give you highly suspect of this business if they're even financially capable of doing this. And I find it odd they split this parcel up. I mean, and they're adding this. I guess they found somewhere they didn't destroy in that neighborhood yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? A show of hands who all wants to remonstrate tonight. Okay, so if you would get ready to be up, that would be great. And state your name and address for the record, please.
Janice Orlowski, 3304 North, 850 East, Rolling Prairie, Indiana, 46371.
And Janice, if I'm not mistaken, you provided us with some details.
I did. I provided
Right,
a database and some research and a letter.
So is this new information you're going to present to us?
Similar. It's similar.
Okay.
Okay. So there exists a best failure incident database that compiles information about stationary best failure incidents around the world. Due to advances in technology, the failure rate has significantly decreased, but the failure incidents remain significant. There were 24 failure incidents last year alone. The key battery safety risks, so the big one is thermal runaway and fire. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are prone to thermal runaway, a self-sustaining, uncontrollable increase in temperature which cannot be dissipated. It leads to fires and explosions, and in layman's terms, it's a domino effect. These batteries emit highly toxic hydrogen fluoride gas during thermal runaway. When combined with moisture or water, forms hydrofluoric acid, one of the most dangerous acids known. Thermal runaway releases large amounts of flammable gases, hydrogen, methane, ethane, vaporized electrolyte solvents that can explode if ignited, especially in confined BESS containers. You have reignition and inextinguishable fires due to stranded electricity. Even after apparent extinguishing, batteries can reignite due to stored energy and ongoing chemical reactions. Neither water nor chemical retardants can reliably extinguish these fires. Batteries must burn themselves out, releasing toxins. RWE's emergency action plan is to vent the toxic gases to the atmosphere and let the fire burn. While these batteries do not release heavy metals, they do emit complex mix of toxic and carcinogenic organic compounds when burning electrolytes and plastics. Victims exposed to battery fire emissions report skin burns, respiratory distress, metallic taste, nausea, neurological symptoms extending 30 miles from the incident site. And internal and external factors can trigger thermal runaway, and the current technology cannot reliably prevent it. In conclusion, large-scale lithium-ion batteries in BESS installations present significant, multifaceted safety risks, including uncontrollable fires, toxic emissions, explosions, and long-term environmental hazards. Like RWE, Vista Morro Bay BESS project provided a 72-page report concluding with the following now haunting and tragic sentence. I quote, in summary, the proposed BESS project poses no significant risk to the health or safety of the community. On January 16, 2025, those words exploded and went up in flames. You don't need to be an engineer or have a degree in chemistry to grasp what researchers are saying. Any layman will get the point. I'm almost done. The lithium iron phosphate batteries proposed by RWE are not sufficiently mature and reliably safe. Article 24 4 is not met
Thank
of
you.
our zoning. Thank you.
Who's next? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Garrett Egger. I live at 180 Sagamore Parkway. My family has a farm at 4829 East Division Road with roughly 250 head of cattle, which is roughly 800 feet from the parcel that this lithium battery storage operation would go. And like it was stated, if a fire was to break out, that harmful gas and everything that would come from it goes several miles from that fire, and being 800 feet from that site, it would release lots of toxic smoke, hazardous gases, heavy metal fallout, and for nearby grazing cattle like we have, these emissions pose several health risks for our animals if they inhale, drink contaminated water, or eat ash-covered feed. The airborne risks cause irritation for their eyes, nose, lungs. The toxic gases, if they inhale them, they can have breathing issues, distress, and possible death. Systemic damage from heavy metal particulates in the smoke can harm their organs and cause them to shut down and kill them after time. The ground and water risks, it can contaminate their feed. We grow corn and soybeans on our farm, and the ash and soot that will settle on the pastures will contaminate all of their feed that they eat and the grasses that they eat. The toxic runoff from the water used to fight the fires will mix with chemicals and heavy metals, poisoning the local ponds, streams, rivers, their water sources. The digestive illnesses ingesting those heavy metals will cause gut pain, sicknesses, long-term illnesses, poisonings that can lead to death. The EPA recommends that we would move cattle indoors, seal barns, switch to uncontaminated feeds, and haul in uncontaminated water until local environmental safety tests can be passed. But like I said, we have 250 head of cattle. We don't have that we can't move them into those types of facilities. And if we have to evacuate, we don't have that ability to evacuate all of our animals. That is our livelihood. We feed ourselves. We feed many members of our community, and this would just cause a lot of issues if we had that nearby.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm Martin Orlowski, 3304 North 850 East, Rolling Prairie, Indiana. I've been a firefighter for over 40 years. As a professional firefighter, I've fought thousands of fires in my career. And there's one fire I would never want to respond to is a battery storage facility. Since long-term effects of thermal runaway can extend for 30-mile radius, what warning system is in place for residents in this agricultural community within 30 miles once the dampers have been opened and toxic gases have been admitted into the atmosphere? Once a catastrophic event has occurred, how are livestock and wildlife supposed to evacuate? What would you tell your family, to those whose life would be lost or suffered health issues from the 24 best failure reports on the 24 best failure incident database in 2025? What funds are available or put aside for our health concerns for the residents following thermal runaway event? And how does RWE propose to dispose of batteries once the failure has occurred? There's no place in LaPorte County for this. These questions need to be answered before we vote yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Good evening. Would you state your name and address, please?
Roger Eggert, 4829 East Division Road. As you just heard from my daughter, few things. I did contact the Board of Animal Health. They would be very interested in knowing a lot more about these projects. As she stated to me, as my daughter stated, put them inside, seal the doors, bring in inside feed. That is the same protocol for a nuclear explosion. As we had said, let's use some common sense. I know they said 2-minute response time. Do we all know where we live? Come to my house in January during a blizzard with 30 inches of snow. There ain't nobody getting to my place in 5 minutes. There ain't nobody getting there in an hour. Much less who's going to come and help move cattle inside. And we're not the only feedlot. There's 3 other feedlots very close to us, and there's a dairy. 2 dairies, 2 miles, not even 2 miles, half a mile away. I just think, in my mind, I'm in the country, we're in the country, we are where we're supposed to be. That is where we're supposed to be doing God's work, providing food for the humanity. They are not where they're supposed to be. I would think we could find someplace else along this transmission line where we could put batteries. There's got to be brownfield areas, there's got to be industrial parks. This is not where it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's have some order. Is there anyone else? Hearing and seeing no further, thank you for coming forward. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Grace Countryman, 1247 North 500 East, Rolling Prairie.
Grace, I'm going to need you to speak into that microphone so we can all hear you.
1247 North 500 East, Rolling Prairie. I live right across the road from where this not data center, but this battery plant is going to be put in. And I know for a fact that we live in it's not a big neighborhood, but it is a neighborhood. We do have a bunch of little kids that run around. We do go on bikes up and down these roads, and I'm very concerned about how the traffic coming in, the new employees that are going to be coming in, that they say they're going to be populating the area. These roads are not very safe. There's a lot of trees. You can't see anybody. Riding, we have kids that are 3 years old. They're not used to big traffic coming in. They're not going to look for a car that they don't know is coming. And there's also a lot of teen drivers in the area. I know I just started driving in the area. That's my daily route to school. I know there's also other teen members that go down that road every single day. And there's also kids that aren't driving yet, but they're getting on and off the bus. Are these people that are coming in going to be watching and pay attention? There's been a lot of influx of bus routes. Bus routes are getting longer, bigger. That area is highly populated just in the small farms. Also, we also have a farm operation. We have animals. We cannot evacuate these animals if anything happens. And it's a very high safety concern just when coming to the animals, the people in the area. You're not only breaking up the wildlife, but you're also breaking up our community that we've tried really hard to build these last couple of years. I know a lot of people have put a lot of money into this community, and it's a very high concern, along with the batteries coming in. Like, we didn't have electricity for a whole week right across the street from where this is supposed to be going in. And I don't know, is that going to help us, or is it going to go somewhere into a higher populated area? Because why we do not, even though we don't have a lot of people, we do have people that do need power. We have animals that need electricity and water to stay alive, along with us. And getting to school, it's a big concern. I don't want to be driving on the road in a high traffic area when I'm just trying to get to school to learn every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Any other remonstrators, for or against?
Good evening. Dave Daisy. I live at 1141 North, 500 East, right next to Grace. I appreciate you coming up here. Speaking on the kids, you know, I'm a lot worried about the construction traffic in this area. We've already got on North 500 East, I think 5 side entrances for the solar project. This is just going to add more construction traffic in that area. One of the side entrances into the solar farm is right in front of my house. Immediately in front of my house is also a hill in that road where my kids get on the bus. Some of the kids that Grace spoke to get on the bus right at the bottom of that hill. It's already a very dangerous area. That, with the trees in that area, just adding all this construction traffic, I'm really worried about the safety of the kids. There's 15 houses, I believe, from Pumping Station Road to 50 North on North 500 East. Out of 15 of those homes, I believe, 8 or 9 have kids that go to school, get on the bus in that area. So in that little strip, that's become really a hot spot for this entire project, is really a burden on the people that live on that road. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. That's it for remonstrance this evening. If we can have Anthony and the representatives from RWE hit some of those hot spots,
Absolutely.
I would appreciate it.
So at any time, you guys can interject, ask specific questions. I'm going to address a couple things, and then I'd like to maybe defer to Rachel on a couple things with DHS and state permitting, Pedro on safety. I don't know if Bob can, talk about traffic or anything like that. With respect to Commissioner Holifield's comments, there were some comments made that we haven't complied with what's going on in the solar. I would respectfully disagree. There are certain things that need to be done, a project narrative, other things like that that have to be done prior to construction. Construction hasn't commenced yet, but we will comply with that under the applicable road use agreement. With respect to DHS, I am going to turn that over to Rachel. Rachel is very familiar with DHS permitting and actually the Indiana statutes that have been adopted on BESS that were actually sponsored by State Representative Jim Pressel here. And then Rachel, after you're done, if you could maybe turn it over to Pedro to talk a little bit more about safety.
Anthony, would you actually pull up the list of submissions to BESS that I emailed earlier? Good evening. My name is Rachel Connor.
Thank you.
My address is 9780 South 150 West in Pendleton, Indiana. As Kaylee said, I'm with the law firm of Denton Spang of Greenbaum. And thank you. So the Indiana Department of Homeland Security issues 2 permits for BESS sites. The first is on the front end. It's a permit to construct. And then before the BESS is operational, they issue a permit to operate so that it can serve the grid. The permit to construct is not filed for until the project is very near the end of its engineering phase, because the Department of Homeland Security in Indiana requires a 90% or better complete engineering schematic, ideally issued for permitting or PE stamped. So when I submit a permit application for BESS, which I think I've done, I'm going to say 3 times now since we have had the new permitting regime, we submit a PDF of the detailed site plan showing the placement of the BESS with dimensions from the BESS to all property lines and any other buildings on the property, showing all streets and roads, parking areas, fire department access, and all major indicators on the site. So if there's a gate, if there's something like that, it's shown on the site plan. We show a PDF copy of the footer and foundation detailed plans that are site specific. I cannot use a generic ideal footer and foundation plan for a client. It has to be for that site. We show a PDF copy of the fire suppression and fire alarm plans. We have to share all of the BESS manufacturers' plans, calculations, and specs for the units that are going to be used in the project, also in PDF format. It's what the state requires. So the major tier 1 BESS manufacturers have, a full list of how their materials are designed, how their containers are designed, how their containers should be put into operation. All of that, I think usually for Tesla is most commonly what I have clients using, has to be turned in. We have to turn in a copy of the company's emergency mitigation analysis, a copy of the emergency response training. They are required to conduct training with local emergency response agencies. A document showing how the project complies with sections 6 through 8 of the NFPA 855, and a copy of the commissioning plan and commissioning test, because the batteries have to be tested before they can be put into service. So all of that gets turned into IDHS. There is a specific BESS administrator who reviews all of these materials. His name's Aaron, seems like a nice guy. And there's others in the department, but he is the specific BESS administrator for the state of Indiana. And then he oftentimes comes back to me indicating, thank you for submitting everything. I will let you know if I have any other questions or if we need any other materials. My clients have all thus far received their permit in approximately the 30-day period that the state has to review and make a determination. So that is how the IDHS process works. And then again, there is the permit to operate, which is when they need, the additional materials like the as-built for and the actual plan test results before putting a project into commissioning. Do you have any other IDHS questions that I can answer while I'm up here?
Was that part of the 6 to 12?
Turn your mic on.
Is that part of the 6 to 12 months on the permit?
Yes.
That whole process is 6 to 12 months?
No. So, well, it takes probably about, I'm going to say 4 months to get everything together. And then once we submit and the state deems the application complete, they have a 30-day clock to review everything. They do use about that full clock. But if a client, I have not had this happen, but perhaps if another attorney has filed materials for their client and it was insufficient, the state's 30-day clock does not start until the application is deemed complete. If they have an outstanding item, they will ask for it. That is common with like class 1 structure design releases, that type of thing that they do as well.
This is probably not your question, but then with that as well, I had the permitting or application process with like the MISO. How long is that?
So the MISO interconnection queue can take a long time. Kaylee, was this in a 2020, what year tranche? Do you know?
This is,
Go ahead.
So this specific portion of the project, I should have mentioned this earlier, is actually went through the PJM queue. It has a signed GIA. It is actually under a joint GIA with our solar project. So everything is signed. This is specific to the AEP line.
Okay, so just for the public and everyone else's edification, if you want to break down some of those acronyms for us, that would be great.
Yes, sorry. This project entered the PJM, Independent System Operator, who owns and regulates the transmission lines that AEP, the utility, operates on. Their queue process typically takes anywhere from like 5 to 7 years. Bluestem entered the queue with a 125 megawatt solar queue position in 2020. And following that, I believe it was in 2021, we entered the queue, which is the queue to bring generation online, with a 55 megawatt BESS queue position and another 125 megawatt solar queue position. As of March of this year, I believe it was, we have signed the generator interconnection agreements associated with all 3 of those queue positions. So they are essentially signed off and good to go online once, everything else is ready.
Do you mind if I elaborate a little bit further?
Sure.
Okay. So in the United States, the power grid is managed. I'm going to clarify you, Kaylee, it's not owned. The infrastructure that moves power is owned by public utilities, either retail or wholesale. But the grid is managed by regional transmission operators. We are in a state that has 2, MISO and PJM. So when someone, whether that is a retailer whose name we might be familiar with, like the utility that you pay your bill to, or a wholesaler like RWE, wants to bring on new technology, or there is a demand for new technology to provide power or storage of some sort, that has to go through the regional transmission operator. We cannot add and subtract power from the grid at that scale without the RTO's permission. They have a large number of analysts and engineers on staff, and they evaluate when we're going to bring an asset online, where does it need to go? Where is there injection capacity? Where is there not injection capacity without an upgrade? If the area that needs it desperately, what upgrades have to happen before it can be brought online? And when can all of this happen given other upgrades that are happening? So basically it's like NDOT, but for a number of states and for power rather than road infrastructure. But they have to determine where the on-ramps and off-ramps are going to be at, where there is too much traffic, where there is not so much traffic and we can perhaps add more assets. And then those interconnection studies come back, and that dictates the speed of sometimes local permitting, sometimes state permitting, sometimes EPA or other environmental permitting and the like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rachel. I think that was very informative.
So at this time, I'd like to bring up Pedro, who's going to talk about fire and safety. And then after Pedro, unless you have specific questions, I'm going to have Bob come up, talk about the traffic and the construction mobilization.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Pedro Duarte, 1401 East 6th Street, Austin, Texas. Glad to be here, able to address some of these concerns and answer some of these questions. So if I don't cover them all, please feel free to ask away and should be able to answer. First of all, just wanted to address the first set of concerns with some reports and databases. I am familiar with that database, EPRI. So it compiles a lot of the events that have happened as worldwide, right? So it's you have to be able to sort it out to be able to define where and also the type of battery technology that you're looking at. So it compiles everything lithium-ion. So there's different flavors of lithium-ion, NMC, LFP. It also compiles things such as batteries, vehicle batteries, and things like that. So just for awareness, and some of the reports that in that conversation, they're mainly spurred from one event. I think most of us may be familiar with, which is the Moss Landing event. I just wanted to denote that is a completely different type of installation from what we are proposing. That was an indoor type of installation using different chemistry as well, and it was also installed prior to the robust standards that we currently have now in NFPA 855 and other standards that we need to adhere to and comply to when we do our installations. There's a lot of safety checks that happen from the beginning, engineering, through the construction, through the commissioning, through the inspection process, through the walkthroughs with the fire department and emergency services personnel. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. It is significantly different. A couple things before addressing some of the things with gas explosions and fires and things like that. Just wanted to address that these systems are really robust systems, right? We only install like tier 1 type of systems, which have a myriad of safety features, right, to prevent this concern that we all have, right? And it is a very legitimate concern. Fires is a legitimate concern. So I feel that. Again, I was a volunteer firefighter, so I understand that. I serve in the military, so I understand safety and life safety, and I am very aware, and I like to address those types of concerns. These installations, we start off with the choice of battery systems that we install and the type of chemistry that it is used. In this case, it's an LFP battery subchemistry, which is different from an NMC subchemistry that was previously used, which was less stable than what we are proposing with the LFP. It's more stable, wider temperature range. So it's a safer chemistry in itself. That's from the very building blocks of the system, right? There's also, as we've seen here, there's the different components within the battery system with the cells, the modules, the racks built into this battery system. So there's a BMS or battery management system within these systems that is able to monitor down to the smallest block, down to the smallest component, which is the cell, right? So it's able to see and self-police, if you will, right? So if there's a temperature that it is outside of normal range, it's able to isolate that cell, so to prevent any propagation to adjacent cells and modules and things like that. So like right off the bat, right there, it's able to isolate it, open contacts on the system, so it doesn't get any. There's no further risk in that sense. There's also a thermal management system, a robust system as well, that maintains the temperature of the containers. Not like, let's say, the buildings of what we are used to, where we have different diffuser vents throughout the building, right? So some places we may have a hot spot, a cold spot, things like that. This thermal management system ensures that every individual battery module is cooled to ensure that it operates under the optimal operating temperature. So they're basically sitting on a cooling plate, right? And so that helps or that ensures that these modules are operating within that temperature. We know that the temperature and heat and overheating, that is the danger, right? Like that we all want to make sure that we don't get to that place. And so again, we have that system in place. So it's a thermal management system. From the installation itself, we observe clearances, setbacks, and things like that to ensure that we're properly following from the results of a UL 9548 testing. If you're not familiar, this is basically a large-scale fire test where they have these units basically set off on fire to see how the fire behaves and how a worst case or a catastrophic event looks like. And it proves out that these systems and these events or thermal runaway events do not propagate from container to container. And in many cases, it doesn't even self-consume the entire container in itself, maybe partially. In a worst case scenario, right? We heard something about explosions and things like that. Again, the industry has come a long way. 2021, there was there was an event in Arizona where some responders, they responded and they were seriously injured. The industry learned from that event. One of the things that is implemented in all of the installations, in all of these containers, is it's an explosion prevention system. It is basically an NFPA, or National Fire Protection Association, 68 and 69 code, which basically the 68 is basically the installation of deflagration panels. Basically, these are like pressure relief panels, if you will. If there's any overpressure within a system, it prevents the system from having projectiles or having some sort of explosion, uncontrolled explosion, right? There's also an NFPA 69 which addresses this hazard through proper ventilation. So again, this vents open up and fans kind of kick in, right, to ensure that there's no overpressure within that enclosure, and that alleviates the concern of explosions, right? To address the fire and the different stuff that we may see online and in other resources with certain perimeters, certain ways that we believe fire behaves in these scenarios. If we take Moss Landing, again, very different, right? And so we kind of have that picture of that big fire and the big warehouse happening. These systems, they go through, again, this UL 9548 testing, right? So they deliberately set one of these containers on fire, and to prove out that there is a controlled burn, if you will, that there's no propagation from container to container. I know that there's some stuff out there that, it's a little bit of a scary thing, right? When we believe that there's a domino effect, when we have one container, it may go off and then set off the next one, the next one, the next one. Before we know it, we have this huge event in our hands, which would be a catastrophic thing, right? And none of us want to see something like that. So these installations, again, through that proper testing, it proves out that we don't have that situation. From a plume and flames, again, because of the testing that these systems undergo through the safety features that are in there, it proves out that it is a control event, a control fire. So in the worst case scenario, one of the systems go into thermal runaway, the flames and the fire burns right through those deflagration panels or those vents from the active ventilation system, right? So they go up in a controlled way, and they're not all over the place, endangering life or other structures, right? So again, it proves out that there is no, the flames and the fire do not affect adjacent units, right? Preventing this domino effect that we're concerned about. As far as smoke, again, the picture with smoke we have is this huge smoke plume, right, just hovering around, things like commercial buildings and things like that. Because this is a controlled fire, a controlled event, it is isolated to that one particular unit, and in most cases, that particular section within that unit. So you basically may have an enclosure that has, in this case, an LG system has 3 different modular sections, right? And each section, it acts as its own little battery storage container, if you will. Those 3 are aggregated, and there's also an electrical panel there that makes up the BESS system. In a lot of those cases, and specific to this testing that was done, the plume, the fire, the smoke was isolated to 2 of these 3 modular enclosures, if you will. So again, the picture that we have versus how we test this out, it's a little bit different. There is the gas composition that was brought up, gas concern. Again, legitimate concern. The composition of gases from this burn, right, from this test, about 95 to 98%. It's made out of hydrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and then the other 3 to 5% different hydrocarbons. So a lot of times we think gas, and it's a scary thought, right? So we may think about the worst case scenarios with the different gases, dangerous gases that are out there. That is not the case. Again, we get those results from this testing. HF was brought up. There is no reading specifically for the LG system. So I review all of these test reports. Very few manufacturers have a reading of HF that we're able to see, and the reading is again in such a low scale that the only concern would be if someone would be like at that, like right next to that container per se, having that event. So other than that, it dissipates, and so like by 100 feet downwind, there is no readouts of any type of gases there.
So Pedro,
yes.
just to ask, so you're saying that when we're talking about livestock and homes near this area, that if, and I don't want to call it an explosion, but if something were to go awry, that those gases and other items go straight up?
Yes, so
Dissipate.
there is, I'm trying to see if there's a picture here would be helpful. Maybe. Okay, page 32, if you have that.
Okay, I'd like some order. I'm not going to have hackling, because if you guys are going to do that, we're going to have you wait in the hallway. These folks deserve their chance to respond to your concerns.
Perfect. So yes, again, the concern is real, legitimate, 100%, and I think that's why I make sure that when I review a lot of the stuff, I'm able to address it, right? So if you see this best container here, you see there's basically 3 sections, and on top there's some panels, right? So yes, in a worst case scenario, right? Again, there's a lot of different safety features in place to prevent from something like that from happening. But let's say worst case scenario, catastrophic event, the plume, the flame should be going out or will be going out from this overpressure panels. They call deflagration panels. Also, there is vents and fans that, again, they open up right on top, right, and that's where it is going to escape, right? Like this is the opening, and it is designed and engineered for that specific purpose, right? So there is a central point or a control type of burn, if you will. And to address also about a response to a fire, right? So we are in a worst case scenario, right? One of this is having an event through the training that we go through with the emergency services personnel. The response to this type of event is you respond and you set up a defensive posture. At no point do you go and try to put out a fire in a specific container. This is electrical equipment, right? They are designed to self-consume. So any introduction of water streams, it's not a good idea, and it would make things worse than trying to make them safer, right? So they are designed to self-consume, to burn out. Somebody brought up stranded energy. Because the approach is to let the unit self-consume. Worst case scenario, it goes on fire. Let's say all three of them go on fire. They're gonna run out of energy to burn, in essence, right? Just like when we barbecue and we have our charcoal, at some point it's just gonna die out, right? So it's same concept. And so after that, obviously RWE goes through the proper channels and addresses the situation, engages a whole bunch of different people, right, including the manufacturer, to ensure that everything is disposed of properly. So that is, from a response from a fire department, is, I don't want to say the easiest, but again, you go, you respond, you set up a perimeter, you ensure that there's the perimeter is safe, nobody's going in, nothing is happening. information is being relayed to them, and they let the unit self-consume. So at no point anybody goes in there, tries to open doors, tries to put out a fire or things like that. And that is managed with the SMEs on site, and also the 24/7 remote operations center that was mentioned earlier. They have visibility into any everything. So at any point, the operations personnel on site would be able to see through their software what's going on, and also contact the ROC Remote Operations Center for any additional information that may be needed.
I know that I do have knowledge of how the 911 center operates with alarms, and there are several types of alarms that come into the 911 center. They get the information and it gets transmitted out quickly to fire departments, and they do know what locations they're at, so they would know what kind of equipment is there as well. So as long as training is going on with our volunteer firemen, and the reciprocating departments, then that is something that I am not as concerned with. I know our times in the 911 center are pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody brought up 911. So when we set up the systems, right, there's an NFPA 72, which is for monitoring, is specific to monitoring the safety devices of the enclosures. So should there be an incident, an alarm, right, the alarm gets triggered and sent out automatically, right, instantly to the monitoring station. They look at it and they contact the responding personnel. So in different places, they have a different number. Sometimes it's the local fire department. Sometimes it's a dispatch number. And that dispatch number is the one responsible to contacting 911, emergency services, EMS, and things like that. So we work through the commissioning process to set that up, make sure that that is in place. And we test it as well. Once the project is completed, we go through the commissioning process, which include testing the fire system, right? That is with the responding personnel. So it's the local fire department plus any mutual aid stations. We do the familiarization of the site, of the equipment. So we have that during the commissioning phase, as well as in an annual basis to readdress any concerns. New personnel may be coming online. And at any point also, if anybody feels that there is some training that needs to be had, we work with our operations team and a person like myself to ensure that that training is available for anybody, right? We want anybody and everybody that is responding to the site to have that information, right? So they can successfully respond to a call out.
So is there any kind of notification with your alarm systems that would notify homeowners or adjacent property owners that there is something going on? They may need to start, if they need to station in place or do anything.
Sure. So the enclosures themselves, they have two different types of horn strobes, right? There's a white one and an amber one. A white one is basically if there's a smoke signal, smoke alarm in that container, that strobe light is gonna go off. And also the strobe light in the main fire alarm control panel, which is usually located at the gate or at the entrance at the first responder station. So you would have that if there is a gas, let's say, that is being read out through the gas sensors, then the amber strobe light is gonna go off at the specific container that is having that signal, and also at the main panel. Now, as far as communications with the adjacent homes or things like that, that is something that it's usually managed through the emergency response. The fire department makes those decisions. Again, through the information that we provide, we show how these units don't have this massive plume and readouts that generally, scare people and triggers, sorts of evacuations or shelter in place. But again, that is at the end of the day is a decision that the fire department or whoever the emergency response personnel is, and we most definitely work with them to try to set that up, and so they understand what is happening and they can make the decision on what would be the procedure for response.
Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
May I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Thank you. You had talked about the fire department training and response. Can you educate me as to when a fire department would respond in the scenario that you described, what the perimeter setback from the incident site would be? And also combined with that, at the perimeter, would they be wearing their SCBA or not?
Okay. We generally want to observe about 100 feet at a minimum, right, from an enclosure having an event. However, the fire department would make that final decision on what they feel is a safe approach. Again, at 100 feet, there is no reportable numbers that would indicate that there would be a need. However, I'm a volunteer firefighter, right? Like, I would want to wear something just in case, right? But again, it would be up to the discretion of the responding personnel. We would train with them during that one training that I referred to in the commissioning. We would talk about such things as strategy, response, positioning, staging areas, things like that. And so during that visit, they would be able to figure out what they believe is the best approach, the best staging area, and things like that. Yes, sir.
So I just want to make a statement too, that this isn't the first time we've had a battery storage in front of us. A number of years ago, we had one, and I know that the applicant worked with our volunteer firemen. I would be remiss to tell you that I believe it too was in Johnson Township or somewhere down kind of out of the way. And it involved our Homeland Security here, emergency services, hazmat. Jeff Hamilton was in there. And I know that during that training that those parties felt comfortable with what training they received to best handle any incident at that location. I don't think that I don't even think you were on the board, that you were the building commissioner when we heard this one. But there was extensive training that was performed by, like I said, all the volunteer firemen, any fire department that wanted to come, basically, in the county, and hazmat, and like I said, Homeland Security offices here, and they all felt that was adequate.
We have had trainings with a few fire departments already, and I know Kylie has reached out to different departments too to offer that type of training, familiarization of the technology of the site, the installation, things like that. And as I mentioned earlier, any person or anyone, any party that is interested in receiving that type of training, we welcome that, right? But again, the name of the game is being able to provide all of that information so that people can feel comfortable in responding to such, to such an event.
And so I also want to just say that if this were to be approved, I think it's important for you guys to work with the 911 center and the homeowners. I am not going to see an amber light outside if there's something going on. That's a fact. But some sort of notification that maybe they have an individual group. I don't know how many of these homeowners that live around the area are participate in notifications from the 911 center. They do go out, texts, emails, it depends on what you've signed up for. So I would recommend that you guys, if this gets approved, that you work with them to make sure you identify and are certain that those people are being notified.
Yeah, absolutely open to having that conversation with the 911 or the responding party, and then just addressing that, right? Should there be an event, how do you notify the people around the area and make sure that that is taken care of?
Good, thank you.
So the problem with the BZA being kind of the first step here, it's like she said, you have hazmat, so Jeff Hamilton, the 911 director, you have emergency management, you have what's Fenstermaker was his title? EMS director. I would like all those people to have a say-so, but the problem is you want to, which isn't your problem, it's a skewed, I would like to hear from all those people before there was a yes vote. I guess I would like their input. They are the directors of all those departments in the county. So, which I know it's not your department to go to them first, but I would like their blessing on it.
Yeah, that's definitely understood. Just want to mention that when we go through those trainings and reach out over to them, this is a lot of familiarization and introduction to the technology. As I mentioned, the response to a catastrophic event is one way, so there's not a lot of engagement that happens. It's awareness, absolutely, right? So I think that from this we can probably take on, okay, who would be the right people to include this in this notification list. But as I mentioned from a response perspective, it's not necessarily there. That's just bring that up.
Sorry, I don't have.
Oh no, absolutely.
I don't want to ruin Pedro's flow, but I do want to just point out we did talk to Jeff Hamilton. He attended the training. I'll be quick. Jeff actually did attend the Kankakee Township Volunteer Fire Department training. I asked him if he had any concerns, questions, notes. He said no. Sounds good. I asked him if he was going to be here tonight. He said he couldn't. I guess he couldn't make it. So. And then I also want to point out that along with training that we are doing now, one of the conditions we have proposed with our application is that we will provide annual trainings to EMS, and we would hold to that if the application were approved.
Thank you. What about you, Tony?
I have several questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'll probably pepper you with
I
a
would
few
say,
here.
who do you want to be at the?
I don't know. I'm gonna probably bounce around here. Condition 12 of the application states that you may develop a landscape plan. Can you discuss that a little bit? It says may. That seems a little odd. It just says the project may develop a vegetative management landscape plan based on input from the adjoining property owners.
Yes, I'm happy to address that. So when we say may develop, we have developed a plan. The plan is actually for the solar array, but if you go to, I gotta figure out what slide it is. Slide, I believe it is 20. We have an outline of our vegetative screening plan. So for a BEST project, for the purposes of fire control and safety, we do not plant grass within the perimeter. That would be I believe it's gravel surface. But outside of that area, we are happy to provide vegetative screening. So the vegetative screening would be more associated with the BESS. We likely wouldn't develop a seed mix specific to the BESS, but we do have one developed specifically for the solar. So this is just taken from that plan and would be kind of finalized for the BESS as well.
Okay, so just continuing off of that, based on the sound study that was provided to us earlier today, there's notes in there that obviously you mentioned meeting the 50 decibel limit at the nearest outdoor or outside face of the nearest home, but it does require mitigation. Do you want to touch on that?
Yes. So the equipment we use regularly, you can purchase silencing and dampening, sound silencing and dampening equipment that can come pre-installed with those modules. Because we haven't finalized equipment selections for this yet, I believe we modeled a wall, a noise wall, and so that is an option. And then also, this wasn't included in the report, but one thing our consultant said is that if we move the BESS 26 meters to the west, the mitigation, that would be the only mitigation necessary. Okay. So that said, the vegetative screening wouldn't provide significant sound dampening, but it would be more for like a view shed mitigation.
Okay. So just the point that any wall structure or whatever would have to go through Mr. Poland and his group. Obviously, the condition 6 discusses lighting. There wasn't a photometric plan provided in anything, but I assume you're going to provide a full photometric and run that past Mr. Poland. I don't know that that's a question, it's just more of a statement. Enforcement condition 25. I would ask Attorney Volz if he's had a chance to look at that, or Mike. There's just a discussion in there about, I think, dealing with anything that might come up for an enforcement action, for any violations of the JZO or that the Plan Commission might put forward. It would be under tab F of the binder they provided. Sorry if I'm.
One apologize.
I'm not asking you a question, Anthony. I guess I'm kind of asking. Maybe we can let them. I kind of threw that at you at the last second. I probably should have told you ahead of time.
We don't have the book in front of us, I think.
So it would be as
book.
part of it's part of the Exhibit F proposed conditions. It's the last condition. I think I would want legal counsel and the building department to review that and to provide us feedback as to their acceptance of the terms of that condition. I don't know that we're going to get that right now, so that's probably okay. I don't. There's not one in here. They would need one, I would think.
Which they didn't touch on. Which one? The road use agreement.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I was actually up here a couple months ago about a car dealership or a auto repair shop that I had a long presentation about how I wish there was a bit more enforcement. I just used that analogy to show you that there isn't a whole lot of tools that Mike has to enforce the ordinances. I know that from Attorney Doug Beege's previous time that when there were serious issues, it's really getting the Plan Commission to file a suit. I mean, it's a heavy lift. This is significantly more than that. This gives you guys significant more authority. This gives him more authority to say, we know you're not doing this right. Here's the process that has to be done. So it kind of this is obviously not going to abrogate any other authority he has under the zoning code, but again, this at its very core is a self-imposed condition that goes above and beyond the ordinance. So of course, yes, it needs to be subject to their approval, but I would just say it goes above and beyond what the ordinance already provides.
And I appreciate that. That's kind of, that was the interpretation I had from it, and but I defer to the folks we hire to be smarter than me on that.
Tony, to address your question, Mr. Novak he is spot on accurate that what is contained in let's just call it paragraph 25 that you're referring to is an additional level on top of the enforcement authority that the building commissioner's office already has. And it specifically provides, and again, pursuant to Indiana code, those sections 1013, 1014, 1015, it provides further teeth than what is already contained within there. And then very specific and detailed timelines for which, if there were any violations or allegations of conditions that were not being met that had been agreed upon, the clock's ticking for a response. And then if the response is not met, then the full force of the LaPorte County Building Commissioner's Office would be able to come down on the petitioner in an expedited manner, which is quite frankly unheard of. It sets up very specific timelines for adherence to the conditions, and then with regards to notice that you are not adhering to the conditions, and this is what will happen after that. So it is in excess of what is already proscribed by both the Indiana Code and the LaPorte County Joint Zoning Ordinance.
And then just to kind of then tie in paragraph 24, not only are we giving you an extra layer of enforcement, but we're giving you $10,000 a year to do it. Because that was one of the things Mike was actually just on, became the building commissioner, but Doug ended up saying, hey, Mike knows his stuff here. He doesn't know NFPA 855. So we self-impose, look, we'll give you $10,000 a year. You can get your own expert. They can say, hey, there's a violation here. This needs to be fixed there. As to that point.
And to that point, Mr. Novak, I appreciate that. I think that's in condition 24, that there was the allowance of up to $10,000 to hire an independent person to review, I think annually, right? Yes.
Correct. Mr. Point, not to kind of shift gears, but to your point about having the various emergency personnel, I mean, we'd be willing to add self-imposed condition number 26, which would make sure that we can convene in concert with Mike Poland reviewing any application, that there essentially be a technical review committee consisting of any emergency response agencies to make sure they see the plans, they know how it works, and it meets their approval as well.
Yeah, because it's just kind of bad that we can't say anything or put a condition on it without they're the experts, not me, not us. So I would like to see, hey, we would like to see this, but they're not here and they haven't been informed of any of this yet.
Absolutely, and we can self-impose. I mean, again, you're going to make your decision. We would respectfully say we can self-impose a condition that they would be a part of the review, and we would get their acceptance as well.
I'm gonna keep peppering you here,
Yeah.
Anthony. Condition 14, and I appreciate what it says. This talks about training on the emergency management plan, but there's a sentence in there that says annual EMS training as requested by the county will be provided by the project at its expense, which I appreciate. I would just like it to not say as requested. I would like it to say something more to the effect of annual EMS training will be provided by the project at its expense, unless specifically deferred by the county.
Absolutely.
I think it needs to be more on RWE to provide that training and not really on the county to ask for it.
Yeah, we can change both, and if Rachel wants to.
Okay.
Generally, the as requested language in conditions or commitments like this just refers to timing.
I get it.
And the extent, it's really more of what fire chiefs want. So if you want us to clarify, it will happen annually and at the timing or the direction of the chief, we can make that clarity.
That's what I would.
The as requested is they get to set the time and place. They get to tell us, you know, hey, we are onboarding 4 new firefighters. We would like you here in the next 15 days. These are all of the things we expect to cover, and we want you to provide new hard copies of all of this. But we can make that clearer.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Hey, can I interrupt? On top of that, I'd like to see some more funding. We got volunteer fire departments that are volunteering their time to take these extra training classes, maybe some extra funding towards them, or at least the department for their volunteer time.
Generally, that type of funding comes in through an economic development agreement, but I don't know of any reason why it couldn't be part of a zoning condition, at least that we work in concert with the local EMS agencies to determine what their needs are and come back with, I don't know the best way to phrase it in real time, but that generally we take care of that in an EDA. But yes, you are more than welcome to make it a condition of approval, and we will work that out. That's understood.
Thank you.
It's more than just showing up and walking them through.
Right.
It's making sure that they have what they need.
So you said also, sorry, Tony, that these were going to be separate projects. This is a separate project. So would this require a separate road use agreement with the county? Obviously, this is going to be some very heavy things coming down these county roads. So you want to keep these projects separate, as one is one and one is the other. So that's another thing we're going to need is another road use agreement.
So our plan, and this kind of goes back to the,
I'm telling him the road use agreement doesn't affect our decision as a Board of Zoning.
correct, but I will
I
still.
agree that it needs to be addressed. However, it is not a deciding factor for us.
So I agree with that, but just to elaborate your point, we have existing decommissioning agreements and road use agreements, and we've contemplated how can that be changed. Our plan would be, rather than do separate agreements, we could just simply go back to the commissioners as an additional step after your approval to amend the existing road use agreement to make it solar and BESS, so that Mike's office, the commissioner's office, is not administering 2 separate things. And since our plan overall is to have one construction mobilization, it makes it way more efficient. That would be our plan. So yes, there needs to be additional agreements, but our plan would be to amend the existing ones to incorporate this project.
Tony, what else you got?
I'll keep going. This one's probably a little picky, but condition 20 talks about removal of the foundations, and it talks about including permanent foundation removal up to 3 feet below ground surface. I would prefer to have that removed because you're definitely going to be 3 feet. If anything goes below that, part of decommissioning, I assume you're going to remove any of the foundations you put in.
Who can speak about it?
I don't assume you're going to have pilings or anything super deep for this stuff, but yeah, if you want to address that.
Bob, do you know?
If you go 42 inches, I think you should remove it.
And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Bob Buskirk, RWE, 353 North Clark Street in Chicago, Illinois. So in regards to decommissioning activities, like, to be completely frank, I have not encountered this yet because I'm relatively new in my renewable construction career, but the plan would be to restore it to the original conditions. So I used to work in gas distribution work, and when I used to do renew and replacement programs, where essentially I would go in and I would put in brand new gas pipe to replace the existing steel utility. The actual directive from the gas utilities was to just leave the existing assets in the ground. So my understanding with our decommissioning plan is that we would remove the existing assets. So for instance, because these are containerized units, like As you had seen from the image there, these are essentially like a 20-foot Conex container, if you're familiar with that, or like the size of like, say, a 10-yard dumpster. So it's very simple to just, once the entire site is de-energized, we would start removing the containers and segments. So essentially you would unplug everything, you would lift the entire unit, and then from there we can start removing all the cabling. So all the cabling is going to be buried, so we would just go about that process of just removing the cables and the existing conduit that was installed. And then as for the actual land itself, like we would work to restore it to its original condition. So I'm not entirely sure what the details of that plan would be at this moment in time, but I imagine it would be doing some sort of reclamation to maybe remove the gravel and whatnot that we would install, any roadways or driveway entrances, and restore that to, say, some sort of condition that if it had earthwork of some sort. I'm not entirely sure what the coverage would be for this existing project proposal. Are there any additional questions regarding that?
I mean, the biggest frost depth here is 36 inches, right? So you're going to put foundations. I don't see anything that was going to have really heavy duty or very deep foundations of any sort. I just kind of, that condition caught my eye. So
yeah. So
I would assume you're going to take, when you decommission, you'll remove everything that you put in.
Yes. So my understanding for this project is that the plan is to utilize slab foundations. My existing BESS projects that I've worked on in Texas, we utilize something called a helical. So it's basically a giant screw that goes into the ground. Now that definitely goes beyond 3 foot depth. So here with your foundations, I would not anticipate it going like 3 foot in depth. And then as for any conduit that we'd be running, it would basically just be like 2 foot of cover.
Sure.
So I mean, it would be no extreme like excavation would be required essentially. And furthermore, because we're tying into like the existing like substation, there's no need to have like increased excavation or foundation work regarding that, because that would be another case where particularly for your substation, for your main power transformer, you would need a very deep and a solid foundation for that, because you would have your containment pit, etc.
Sure.
Okay. I think I got like one more. I think most of the rest of my questions have been asked by other members already. The emergency management plan talks about water for firefighting, but it says that the source is to be determined. Can you explain or just discuss that a little bit, and when that would be determined and where the source would be?
So that might be a question better answered by Pedro, but
yeah.
I can say that for the projects that I have managed and constructed for RWE that are BESS specific, we actually were required to have a water tank installed on the site. Now, I'm not certain at this time what the plan is for this particular project, but that would be one avenue right there, would be to have a water tank installed on site. But again, as Pedro had alluded to earlier, you would not control the fire with
Water.
with this water. It would be more to cool the surrounding area.
Understood. Yep. Just
So speaking further to that, sir, the NFPA 855 requires water availability if it's needed for cooling around the fire. It doesn't go on the fire. It generally is up to the fire, agencies in the area as to whether they want to shuttle water, so bring it on the trucks, or if they would prefer to have on-site water.
Okay.
My understanding, Mr. Poland, is that there had been a discussion of an on-site tank requirement. Is that the case, or is that an agency request? Are you able to speak to that yet? Or will that be part of the permitting process?
I believe that would be a specific agency request.
I agree.
Okay. Regardless, NFPA 855 requires us to meet the standard set by local fire. So if it's a 10,000 gallon tank, it's a 10,000 gallon tank. If they prefer to shuttle, then they prefer to shuttle. We have to adhere to what they want to do in their territory.
And I guess their territory would be
Fire territory. Fire.
Kankakee Township Volunteer Fire Department. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they work in concert or if they have a lead that's a little bit beyond what we as the applicant maybe control.
I think that's probably something we're going to have that group of hazmat, emergency response, all of them together collectively make a decision. is
Agreed.
kind of what Eric was talking about
Agreed.
earlier.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's the last of my specific question.
Probably not a you question, but are you planning on adding on to this in the future? Seems like a kind of a small setup, honestly,
best
for
site?
a 4-hour. So is the plan to get started and then add to? Like, I know it's a 50-acre parcel. You're talking 10 acres on only 4 hours of storage or runtime. Sorry.
Yes. So we would be tied to that 55 megawatt size due to that queue position that was approved, as previously mentioned. So that is the maximum. In terms of project design, like we wouldn't really be able to go above that. That 4-hour sort of moniker / technology is really more in reference to how long the batteries can charge and discharge. So after the battery is done charging, I believe it's able to discharge power for 4 hours.
Yes.
It's a 55 megawatt capacity discharge with a total capacity of 220 megawatt hours.
That's
what you're
correct.
saying. So you could, if depending on that, the fastest it could discharge would be 55 megawatts up to that.
Okay.
Yes.
So if it's going at 25, it's going to last longer. Yes.
And as of right now, there's not another best queue position related to this site.
That's correct. This 55 megawatt queue position is the only one currently contemplated for this site. It takes about 5 or 6 years to get through the queue, so we're planning to just site it on this parcel. It's not going to take up the full 55 acres. Like I said, it's a fairly small footprint, and we're currently not planning a second phase or anything like that.
Jeff, what do you have?
All right, for Pedro, if you want to come back up. So I'm back on the worst case scenario.
Of course.
And I think that's the biggest concern on everyone here. Thermal runaway. That container, all three go up. You got 60-mile-an-hour wind or greater. And you say it won't travel, the toxics will not travel past 100 feet? Well, you said less than that.
So a couple of things there, right? We said toxics, carbon
The
monoxide.
toxics. Oh, shoot. That's on one of the pages I read in here.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess again, a concern, right? Legitimate concern depending on the gassing and the off-gassing, right? When we have carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen as the main components, it's something that would dissipate and would not be harmful for people downwind from that, right? Now the other 5% being methane or depending on the technology, the off-gassing is different. But no, it's the type of off-gassing that is the concern, right? And then the quantity, and then as you mentioned, depending on the wind, how far it can travel. In this case, for this particular technology, the report shows no HF, which is generally the highest concerned off-gassing, and I want to say 98% on this one. It's the carbon monoxide, dioxide, and hydrogen. So if there was some harmful gas that is off-gassing from there, I see that from the reports. I don't see that type of gassing that we would be concerned about, let's say 100 feet downwind and things like that. One of the things that can be done, or it generally is done, there's as the emergency response personnel, comes to the site, is they might have a gas meter, right, that they can deploy to ensure that, again, it is safe. New York City does that, right? They basically come in, they test certain range, test again, but then they never go in closer than 100 feet unless it's life safety condition. But I hope that kind of addresses or answers your question.
I guess to the best, I struggle with that.
Yes,
There's no, like, would you stand within that 100 feet if it was blowing directly at you, burning? Would you stand there?
If I'm responding, yes, I would. And again, we have all of these agencies, right? And we have all of this testing that happens, right? We have agencies that test out our appliances at home, electrical stuff, right? So like we depend on this testing to be able to make the best judgment, right, of what we can do and how we approach things. In this case, NFPA, and specifically NFPA 855 sets a standard, right, that ensures that all of these safety concerns are addressed. And furthermore, again, we work closely with the response personnel to ensure that they are comfortable with responding to a worst case scenario. I mentioned set up a perimeter, defensive posture, ensure that nobody else comes in and stuff like that, right? So like, and from setbacks and perimeters, we know that there's not going to be anyone close to that type of that container. Again, unlikely, but we're talking worst case scenario, as you mentioned. So there is no one that's going to be exposed to something like that, right? In a worst case scenario. Again, off-gassing, composition of the off-gassing shows one thing. It's hard to imagine something else other than what are the results from the testing. So I can only I don't know, I can only think of the things that I have in front of me. I cannot think much more what if scenarios because I don't have any data that would kind of lead me in that path. So that's why I stay with what I know, which is the results of that testing. And I would respond to a house fire, a commercial fire, and I know that there's a lot of stuff in there that it's very harmful. So I wouldn't have an issue responding to a fire in a best fire.
I have a question for you as well.
Sure.
So you keep saying, again, I'm not an expert. I don't know anything that you're talking about for the most part in the numbers and the laws and the regulations. But I do know that you did say it. 2021 was when this new law came in effect.
No, sir, not necessarily.
The regulations.
I said 2021 was a point of learning, right? So 2021 was when we had an event in a BESS, not we as RWE, but the industry as a whole. There was an event, a BESS event in Arizona. And one of the things that happened was that there was no NFPA 855 had not been implemented as it is right now, and is definitely not as robust as it is right now. One of the things that was not mandated was the active ventilation or deflagration panels, which is what caused that, right? So there was off-gassing, and basically all of those gases accumulated and built up. And so when someone tried to open the container, they had that issue.
So how old is this technology that you have now, that you're utilizing?
So all of the technology adheres to NFPA 855. So that is, as we mentioned earlier, it's like the it's the Bible for all installations, anything installed BESS. It addresses safety, how to testing, inspections, all of the requirements, all of the safety requirements, installation requirements, engineering requirements, things related to the BESS installations are delineated in that NFPA 855, which it is. We just have the NFPA, I think the proposed new one is 2026. But again, it keeps building up from the previous one to ensure that it addresses anything that, anything of concern. And so like, as we propose these projects, we ensure that we meet all of the codes and standards that are out there, right? We're not, we're making sure that we evaluate them, that we see them, that we can meet them, and then we install accordingly. And again, we have all of the testing and inspections that happen to ensure that everything is installed to that standard.
Okay, so my last question. So that old technology that you saw that catastrophic failure with, like how old was that technology?
So because we didn't install it, I'm not really familiar with the installation, the timelines and things like that. I believe it was an NMC technology, and it was a walk-in type of technology. So it was basically a little building packed with battery modules. Did not have the same, like I said, the same features, where if there was a buildup of gas, it would have been able to be controlled through that deflagration. So it was older technology. Again, we address this with newer technology, but not just newer technology, but also the design with the spacing and perimeters and things like that. And that's why I stand here comfortably saying that these are the safety features in there, which I mean, it shows that it works.
So I guess all those series of questions is, at that time, say that was 10 or 15-year-old technology, there was someone like yourself saying that was the latest, greatest, and safest technology, and then we saw what happened. So now here we are, and you're saying this is the latest, greatest, safest technology. In 5 years, are we going to be in the next latest, greatest, safest technology?
Well, that would be a hypothetical. Like, we have
Right.
cars from like 20 years
Yeah,
ago,
which you
30
can't
years
answer that
ago,
question,
50 years
that's fine.
ago. So we don't know where we will be 5, 10 years from now. We know what we have right now, which we believe is safe to install.
Can I add a couple
Oh, absolutely.
additional pieces of information? Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, Rachel, I think everybody's kind of envisioning like Mount St. Helens going off when one of these, I mean, I'm being honest.
Yeah. So the
To
NFC,
oversimplify it, I think
the oldest technology has been in commercial use for over 20 years. And a catastrophic event happened out west. And that changed the way we approach battery storage technology industry-wide, in the same way that the Indiana State Fair stage collapse changed the way that my husband's company approaches commercial steel and aluminum trussing. When a catastrophic event happens, everyone pivots, and we change the way things are done. That is the reality. This project will be governed under the 2026 version of the NFPA 855. The previous version is the 2023. I believe before that version was the 2020. I don't know when the NFPA put out 855 originally. To be quite honest, I don't know what the first version was. I can find that information for you. But the NFPA and the industry are constantly moving toward better. That is the goal for any type of industry. And we don't put these in buildings anymore. We don't use buildings because, the non-metal features of a building are very vulnerable to fire and to spread and to embers. That's why these are contained in metal, and they are outdoors in the open air, and they have the ventilation shafts and flaps because we learned. And I mean, I don't have any other answer for you other than in the same way that we now have seatbelts in cars, which my grandpa still thinks is dumb. We do better. And as an industry, we do better. One note I do have for you, I will connect Mr. Poland with the Battery Innovation Center, which is an internationally renowned battery testing facility. It's in southern Indiana. They have 2 blast rooms indoor and an outdoor blast site. They set them on fire just to see what happens. Both small and cell phones and iPads and handheld device technology, mid-size like appliances, and the large scale stuff. So we do that here. Indiana is a leader in that testing, and I'm again happy to connect Mr. Poland with the folks at that facility.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions that I can answer while I'm up here?
Do you guys have any more questions?
What,
Ernie?
just a brief, what do you provide in the training, and what kind of safety equipment are you providing to all the volunteer fire departments? Not just 3 or 4, but all of them.
Sure. So we go through site response, familiarization of the site, right? So you want to make sure that you know the site before you respond. Strategy on response, setup, muster areas, staging areas, things like that. We go through the technology-specific safety features. So we basically open up one of the containers and we do a little show and tell type of thing, right? This is the container, here's a panel, this is the smoke detector, is a gas detector, these are the batteries, things like that. We show them the site. So we do that, the technology familiarization, site familiarization. We go through on the ESRP, or Emergency Services Response Plan, we go through scenarios, right? What happens, worst case scenario, one of them being stranded energy that was brought up earlier, right? We address it. Okay, there might be a situation. That is why we never open it and start touching these things, right? We let it just sit there for RWE to take care of with the appropriate personnel and equipment later on. As far as equipment, because again, we go back to the response and the approach, because the approach is we respond, set up a perimeter. We're not engaging the fire, so there's no special equipment that needs to happen. What equipment they would choose to utilize and would be recommended to utilize is the SCBA, right? So the oxygen tanks or something like that, as they are, far away to just, again, for further prevention and safety. But that's already part of our response, right? We respond to a home fire, commercial fire. We've done those things to make sure that, again.
So are you going to furnish those tanks and stuff to the departments?
I don't think that's something that definitely outside above my pay grade. I believe they already have those type of things, but I would not be able to answer that question for you.
Well, in the last few years, the federal and state have taken a lot of subsidies away from the departments, and now they're going to have to pay for their own fuel, and they're going to have to pay for their own equipment, and they don't have the money.
With respect, Ernie, I don't think that's one of the decision-making criteria for this board. That's something that he isn't going to be able to answer, and it's going to be on the contract side.
Okay.
With respect, I totally understand.
I can speak very briefly as in terms of adequacy of equipment. Pedro is one of the individuals who participated in this training. We had another officer of the company, an HSSE officer who is a very experienced firefighter with over 40 years, I think in various fire departments. He actually was a firefighter in Arizona. I don't know if he was there when this specific BESS incident in 2021 took place, but he has indicated that some important equipment that a fire department should have when responding to this is a thermal imaging camera, aka a TIC, and then just sufficient fire engine and I think it's pump water storage capacity to respond to a fire like this if there's no water on site. But the thermal imaging camera is something that the fire departments that we have talked to so far have indicated that they already have, and all the fire departments seemed secure following the training that they would be secure responding to these fires.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? I know we've had a lot of information tonight. What's the pleasure of the board?
Madam President, if I may,
Yes.
as the board is deliberating and or making their decision with regards to a motion, either in favor or against the petition, it is incumbent upon the board to remember that this petition is contained on its face. That's it. And there are 8 categories under a special exception that you are to use to make your decisions. So if you determine that those categories have been satisfied to your requirements by the petitioner, then the petition would be granted, and that needs to be communicated as such. And then on the same side or the flip side of that, if you determine that the petitioner has not satisfied those requirements, that needs to be enumerated specifically. You cannot just simply say, well, we deny the petition. Motion to deny, second, all in favor. That's not going to work. And then again, with consideration of this petition, there are 25 conditions that are already contained within that are subject to being incorporated into either a grant or a denial of this petition. And certainly that can be then amended by the board's motion to include additional conditions. That is something across, not just specific to this petition. Any petition that is before this board can be granted subject to conditions as imposed by the board. Just as you deliberate and make your motion in whatever direction you choose to go.
Thank you.
I think in light of the long conversation we've had here and a lot of the considerations and the important concerns and the information that was brought up, there's a lot to digest, but there's also some additional information that I feel that I need to evaluate the compliance with those conditions, including some feedback from local fire departments, from local EMS, any emergency services who may want to have that. Is that something that we can request of you, Mr. Poland, to reach out to the county departments and receive comments from department heads and potentially the volunteer fire departments in regards to any conditions they would like to see as part of this?
Yes, we can reach out and get statements from them and provide them to you for your review and consideration.
Not yet. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. No, this is not yet.
So I have a quick question. Andrew, I know that the Department of Homeland Security, is there certain conditions we cannot put on these?
Mr. Point, I would assume you're referring to a previous meeting where the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 was implicated as far as certain things that can be discussed or could not be discussed. There is no consideration with regards to, from a state perspective, and then from a federal perspective with relation to the statute that was cited that continues to be updated every year. However, the requirements under, and I'm sorry, 1855? 855, as has been referenced, those are constantly evolving. And those are so far above what is required by this board with regards to these conditions under a special exception. It is up here. And those continue to evolve on a semi-annual basis, if not more. And none of these conditions that are imposed by that federal statute are grandfathered in. This project needs to continue, or would need to continue to evolve with standards that are not contained within the joint zoning ordinance. So I don't know if that addressed your question or not. Probably not, because I'm an attorney.
I think that was a lot of work.
I will say, anything that this project has to do to comply with federal law, federal regulation, or state law, you cannot ask me to have my client not comply. If you have a local request that is in addition to their requirements and it is within the scope of your zoning ordinance or within state zoning law, then my understanding is that yes, it is within your purview to impose that condition. You just cannot hamper the compliance that we have to have with state law or with federal
Yeah, I
regulation.
definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I should have tried to look, I think it was probably my very first meeting a couple years ago, Mr. BG had sent out an email regarding these things saying that they were under the Department of Homeland Security, blah, 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 blah. So there was things that we couldn't do, basically. So,
And I think it's important for everyone to understand, including, our officials, just because the Board of Zoning Appeal makes, if we decide to approve this petition, there are still other regulations and applications that need to take place. Just because we say yes or no doesn't mean that's the final answer. We're just the first step going forward. So that's for everybody. There's other requirements that you have to meet, and your application sounds lengthy. So I think that's important to everybody to understand that we're just the first step. We're not the final answer. So with that, I think we've had time to think about it, and I will entertain a motion.
So, based on my previous comments, I would make a motion that we table this petition and request feedback from local EMS, county department heads, fire department for BZA input, as well as give the petitioner an opportunity to address their conditions and some of the requests that were made by members this evening as to additions or modifications to those conditions, and to allow them to return, I guess, in 30 days. I don't know if it needs to be a month, or at least we would be prepared to put that back on the agenda or table it until the next meeting. So that's my motion. My motion is table, look for information from the county, and an opportunity for the petitioner to revise and adapt their conditions per comments this evening.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion to table for further information and a second. All those in favor say aye.
One moment, Madam President.
I was so
With a
close.
motion and second on the table, it just needs to be made clear that the presentation portion of this petition.
Oh, yes, I
And
actually
the
was
remonstrance portion of this petition has been
concluded.
closed, has been
Yes,
concluded.
I'm glad I actually had it on my mind. So thank you. Is that everything good? Everybody
Agreed.
still?
Agreed.
Okay.
That-
All right, so
yes.
we have a motion and a second. Anthony will not be coming back next month and giving us a long presentation.
I've done this before, and I actually told my client this will probably happen. No, I just always like to
Okay.
make clear of the next.
We have a motion and a second on the table. So
Apologies.
Thank you. So all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. We'll see you guys in a month. If you find that the 30 days is not enough time to get the information, then contact the building commissioner's office if you need additional time. Thank you. So I'd like to take about a 5-minute break for everyone to use the restroom if they need to and clear out if this was the only petition you're interested in. So we'll be back right around 8 o'clock.
Amen.
So petition number 2 this evening is a petition for developmental standards for Michael Vita and Hugh Oak for a third accessory structure, 24 by 30 feet. Property is located at 7661 North Walker Road, New Carlisle, Hudson Township, zoned R1B. Petition number 2, are you here? Okay, if you would, please come up to the microphone and our attorney will check your legal work.
You need my name and address again?
In a moment. Let's see what,
Madam President, notice is adequate.
okay, so yes, now I would love to get your name and address for the record.
Mike Vida. My spouse's name is he.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 7661 North Walker Road, New Carlisle.
I often feel like they should get some pronunciation for me on this phonetic spelling, so. All right, so you want to add an additional structure?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of use are you going to have as for this structure?
It's cold storage. I'm getting up there in years and I got a lot of stuff. And live by a lake, golf cart, tractor. I just got a lot of stuff that I've added and I need additional storage space.
Is that 24 by 30 feet going to be adequate?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Do we have any remonstrators tonight for this petition? Anybody for or against petition number 2? Okay, hearing and seeing no petitioner, no remonstrators, what kind of questions do we have as a board?
Just curious why the additional structure and maybe not a consideration of an addition onto one of the existing structures.
Well, I considered adding on, but I got a major power line that runs underground that comes right behind my garage.
Okay.
That'll do it.
I didn't want to mess with it, put something on top of it. So.
Well, not to
spot I-
mention, it's probably a utility easement that they
Oh, it is.
discourage
Yeah.
construction
Yeah.
within.
Yeah, and I don't want to build on it and then 2 years later, something bad happens. And the location for what I'm requesting now, it's just, there's nothing out there at all.
So you would consider an addition onto the back of your garage to be practically difficult?
Yeah, I would, yes.
I would say it would be,
Safety.
yeah, and not feasible with a utility easement.
Okay.
Yeah, I live there's 5 houses that live off of one power box. I'm not sure how it was done that way. That's the way it's done, and right in my backyard it runs through. So,
Any questions? Eric? Okay, if there are no further questions from the board, I'll entertain a motion
I'll make a motion, we pass this variance.
with the reason.
The reason is because of the power line there and you would not be allowed to build over it.
Good.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and some seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Good luck.
thank you.
Congratulations.
And thanks for the experience, because I was not ready for what happened earlier.
I understand. Okay, petition number 3 this evening has been tabled. Notification was not adequate. So we're going to move on to petition number 4, which is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Matthew and Catherine Eaton for parceling off 2 1/2 acres with 200 feet of road frontage, leaving 15 1/2 acres with approximately 45 feet of road frontage. Property is located at 11726 West, 200 South, Westville, New Durham Township, zoned ag on 18 acres. Thank you. If you'd like to come forward, we'll see if your legal work is ready.
Madam President, notice is adequate.
Thank you. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Matt Eaton, 11726 West 200 South in Westville.
And so what, you're trying to divide your acreage. Hold on. I couldn't quite tell from the black and white that I got. So could you kind of give us a description, or if you want to come up and mark on it?
Right now, my house is actually, this is my pond. I have a house right here. This driveway's roughly 1,400 feet, comes all the way back. What I want to do, because my kids are grown and gone, and it's too much to handle, take care of, we want to take this is roughly 2.5 acres right here. I want to take this 200-foot frontage and leave this 45 for the existing driveway and sell that house and property and build a new one in the front.
Did you see what he did? So the sliver is the road. So the sliver portion was going to be here to access this back.
And he's living back there.
He lives about here. Okay. Are there any remonstrators tonight for this petition? Anybody for or against this petition? Hearing and seeing none, what kind of questions do we have as a board? I will say that I am generally opposed to this little sliver with a driveway. I think it's bad for safety. It's, in my opinion, bad for fire response because you're going to have that house in the back. So it is definitely not something that I am encouraged by. Again, with respect to safety and fire and emergency response. So let's see what other questions we have.
So you're wanting to parcel that off so that way that the house would be for sale and then that lot would be for sale? And then you would be building in that back with the right of way?
No, I want to build in the front.
Oh, okay.
I want to downsize the house, and the property is too much for my wife and I to take care of anymore.
The challenge here is the provisions in the JZO and the standards for developmental variance require us to find some things. Are there any practical difficulties with the property to use it the way that it is now? Like, this is just really a preference for you to parcel this off and
Yeah, I already own the property, and
okay.
I just want to build a house on what I have instead of going out buying more property to do the same thing.
Sure.
Just downsize.
Ernie, do you have any questions? Jeff?
I don't have any questions.
Eric, do you have anything else? Okay, well, if there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the petition based on the lack of practical difficulties with the property.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. I will step down and second that. So all those in favor on denying based on Tony's comments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. So that motion has failed. I'll entertain a second motion.
Trying to think how I have to state it. I have to have a reason, correct? No.
Madam President, point of order.
Yes.
The stated reasons can be simply that the petitioner has met the requirements for a variance for from developmental standards as enumerated in the joint zoning ordinance. They are specifically outlined as to what conditions the petitioner must meet in order for the variance to be granted. So if you determine, if your motion is based, if you make a motion to approve based upon the fact that the petitioner has satisfied those requirements for a variance from developmental standards. You just simply need to enumerate, you need to indicate that you are approving, and again, I'm speaking hypothetically here. You're making a motion to approve based upon the fact that the petitioner has met the criteria as set out by the joint zoning ordinance. Does that make sense? Is that a yes or a no?
Well,
Do
yeah,
I
it's
need to-
subjective because you technically haven't met the.
But if you're approving it, he has met it, or I'm sorry, the petitioner has met it, because the enumerated requirements in the JZO have been met by the petitioner. By his petition, he has met those requirements. But again, that needs to be provided as the reason for the motion to either approve or deny. They've either met the requirements or they have not met the requirements, and how have they not met the requirements?
So yes, it is somewhat subjective.
Question?
Yes.
So, am I understanding this correctly? You want to partition off 2.5 acres with 200 feet of road frontage
Right.
to meet the county's requirements?
This section.
Yes. And the 45 that's left over is for the driveway to go back to the existing property where my house is currently at.
And that's a beautiful house.
Thank you.
So this part, and then this part.
Mhm.
That's what he wants to do.
He wants to build a house there,
Yes.
and he's met that requirement.
I'm not going to answer that.
Well, I'm saying that's what they said, right? 2.5 acres to approve the road frontage.
But that leaves this parcel with 45 feet of road frontage. That doesn't meet the requirement.
Madam President, I'll make a comment
Please.
that might make it helpful with the motion. If you believe that the petitioner has articulated the difficulty of maintaining the property by keeping it the same as for the reason for the split, then that can be articulated in your motion.
So I make a motion to approve this to the fact that the property owner has alluded to the fact that it's difficult to maintain and he wants to downsize the property as presented here.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Aye. Okay, good luck. Please make sure that you post addresses very clearly for your fire department and emergency services to see both addresses. Okay, petition number 5 this evening is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Greg Carwick seller and Courtney and Kyle Ott buyers for construction of a home with only 26 feet of road frontage using North Ray Bush Drive for the entrance. To be built within the next 3 years. The property is located west of 6456 North, 400 West. LaPorte zoned R1B on 3 acres.
My name is Kyle Ott. I live.
Kyle, we're going to wait just a moment, make sure our legal work is presented properly.
Madam President, notice is adequate.
Thank you. Okay, now you can tell me your name and address.
I think I would know what to do by now. My name is Kyle Ott. I live at 6442 West, US Highway 30, Wanata, Indiana.
Courtney at the same address, 6442 West US Highway 30.
Okay. Tell me what your plans are here.
Well, eventually we're going to build a house if we're allowed to.
And
But like I say, they said set a time, but there's only, like I said, there's enough you could put a driveway in, but it's kind of a goofy, small road, you know what I mean? But it's like theoretically with 26 feet, if you split it either way, you could put a 15-foot driveway and get a fire truck in there, and all that good stuff and still have a little bit left, you know what I mean? one of those deals.
Madam President, I wish I would have taken another picture set a little farther back because to show the road. And this is a deja vu because this petition for the same property,
Yep.
different petitioner came before us before.
Yes.
Supposedly it was approved before. Supposedly. So I've been told by our realtor. This is
Oh, that's the problem right there.
what this has been.
I'm going to turn into Paul Zona for a moment and say the problem is with these realtors promising everything.
This is a cul-de-sac, right?
Yes.
If you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little guy.
It looks like a dead end road.
Yeah, it's a small cul-de-sac. Yeah.
It definitely is a unique lot. Does that help?
A unique lot.
Yes.
Yes. Are there any remonstrators for this petition tonight? Anybody for or against this petition? Thank you. We do have one in the back in favor. Okay, hearing and seeing no further remonstrators. Questions from the board? And if we don't have any questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the variance of 4.03, that they've met the requirements of a special developmental standards variance.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Good luck.
Thank
Good
you.
job, guys. All right. Our last petition tonight, because petition number 7 has been postponed until our December meeting, is a petition for variance of developmental standards for Caleb Bingaman for construction of a 30 by 56 pole barn with 600 feet of living space for elderly parents. The property is located at 4269 North, 630 West, LaPorte, zoned R1B on 4.007 acres. And while our attorney's looking over your legal work, I will thank you for your patience this evening and
Notice is adequate.
thank you. So if you could state your name and address for the record.
Caleb Bingaman, 4269 North, 630 West, LaPorte, Indiana.
All right, Caleb, how are you, you're building a pole building and you're going to have living space on one level?
Yes.
And is it going to, is there also going to be car storage or just living?
It's basically for just tools and stuff my dad left behind, and then all her stuff too.
Are you sure this is going to be large enough? Okay.
Can't really go no more without cutting down trees.
Okay. I'm going to put him in touch with my kids. Are there any remonstrators tonight for this petition? Either for or against? Any remonstrators? Okay, hearing and seeing no remonstrators. Questions from the board? So your mom's going to live with you? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does she require any kind of extra care?
Not yet. I mean, it's funny, but she's still capable right now.
Okay.
Question for Mr. Poland here. We have an accessory structure. I think the request was for developmental standards variance, but if we're doing an accessory dwelling unit, that's typically a special exception. Is there any concerns with that? Would they need both? And I guess the question is for legal counsel as to whether or not that changes things.
I'm going to look at the.
I feel like if
Mr. Ross, there is an overlap with regards to the requirements for a special exception and a developmental standards variance. A special exception generally has more stringent requirements.
Right.
With that being said, I do understand the nature of the question in that it could be considered an accessory structure, but I will defer to Mr. Poland.
I concur with legal counsel.
Okay.
I agree, and I feel like that could be a hardship to take care of an elderly parent. It is, yeah, absolutely.
It is a hardship.
Are there any other questions from the board? And I'll entertain a motion if,
This is a hardship, because I was out to the site with Mr. Poland and we talked about this. This is something that he's doing for his mother to save him driving many, many miles every day too. So with that said, I would like to make a motion we pass this petition. And it meets the requirements.
Second.
okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Good luck. Thank you. Mr. Poland, is there any additional business in front of the board this evening?
Real quick, Madam President, I apologize for the black and white stuff
Yeah.
that's in there. When I encounter those in the field, I say bad words. And also, we are in the process of updating our forms that petitioners will use to file. That should make it easier for you all when you're articulating a motion, and also easier to generate findings of fact.
I think too, if you could provide us with, maybe not Tony, but the rest of us might need a cheat sheet that says the criteria for each. I think that would be helpful.
Those specific sheets are in the binders, so you could pull that out,
Do you see my binder with me?
or I can make a
Just
new one.
provide, yeah, maybe laminate it. We could reuse it.
Okay.
One on one side, one on the other.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other business in front of us, Attorney Volz?
No, Madam President.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Good evening.
You want to stay here?